Good afternoon and welcome everyone to those that are joining us on the webinar today, and also to those people that will be listening to the recording. It's really nice to have you with us. The topic today is video and the use of video and how you can use video to stand out from the crowd and get a lot of people to have a look at your videos to help you with your online marketing. I'm in the studio here with Nico Steyn. Nico is a filmmaker, producer, director. He's been experimenting quite a bit with YouTube himself. And Nico, do you want to just say hello to everyone so they can hear your voice and that you're a real person?
Hi there, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
And the brilliant difference here to being in the studio is that it's difficult to talk over one another because we're here in front of one another, so we don't have this kind of time lag, which is really cool.
Yeah, very enjoyable. Thank you for the invite.
No, you're welcome, and well, thank you for the invite to your studio. And my question to you is, why aren't people watching your videos?
Well, there we go. That's the first question you're asking. When we talked about the topic, that was exactly it. To say, you know, I've been experimenting for a while with how to do it on YouTube, how to have Facebook shows, and so on. And I realized that I don't have high viewership, and at some stage I was really upset about it and started thinking about it clearly. And I think it is really because there are some factors, Paul, in terms of how regularly one posts, how big your network is, and how long you've been going. You know, if you look at people like Miranda Sings or so, who's on YouTube and has something like 13 million people following, she has been doing this for 7 years.
Yes.
And so there is that of doing it consistently and finding your audience and fine-tuning it constantly, and then of course putting a bit of marketing money into it as well.
Well, that's pretty interesting, because what I found with the webinars is when I started it, initially there were some people that came on, but generally I've had about 60% of my audience are people that come repeatedly, and if they miss one, they're quite sorry that they missed it, and then they go and look at the recording. So generally it's true to say that some people will just like your stuff and eventually they'll want to see a lot of it.
Absolutely, and being regular with it. You know, the fact that my partner in this business with Tycoon Tribe is Suits and Sneakers, and Mark Sham, who religiously every day makes 2 or 3 hours of his day part of talking to the audience, letting people know where it's going, what's new, what's happening, and so on. And that's your job. That's what you have to do.
Yeah. So your main lessons, in other words, the lessons that you can teach us that'll help us to be able to get our videos watched and to a level that people want to keep coming back and looking at them. What would you say your main lessons are?
Look, I think the first thing is you have to find that market that you speak to and define it be very clear about why you're doing it and what it is that you're doing for a very specific segment of a market.
Yes.
And I think it could be across platforms. You could probably have 2 or 3 different audiences. That's fine too, but you have to be very clear about where your audience sits, and then you have to start refining your content, and you have to test it. You know, you test something and you go, does it work 8 o'clock in the morning? I mean, for the longest time during lockdown, I was waking up 6 o'clock in the morning so I could do an 8 o'clock show, and it was killing me. Yes. And then I realized I can have more viewers if I do it at 4 in the afternoon. And so I've moved it a little bit, and I'm getting better viewers or better viewership. A lovely troop of people are still following me, which I'm very grateful for. And then over time, I plan to grow this now and be serious, because the other thing is sometimes we just give up halfway.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I don't want to get up and watch a webinar at 8 o'clock in the morning or a live video shoot. I'd rather watch it when all the urgent stuff is over and I'm a little bit more relaxed, which tends to be in the afternoon, so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so what have you been putting out there that you think will be of interest to people, and how have you packaged it so that it will be interesting?
I think for starters, this was last year still, I started an exercise where I really wanted to stream live to YouTube. And in order to do that, you have to have 1,000 subscribers at least. And so when I started it, my goal was to regularly post, like the vloggers taught me to do it, you know, serious people who do at least 15 minutes every single day. Total commitment. Okay. And I tried that. And as I was posting daily, I was watching my subscribers climb, naturally, completely organic. And in fact, by day 73, I had 1,000 subscribers, which is remarkable.
And that's by just doing it on an absolutely everyday basis.
Absolutely every day, Monday to Friday. I tested it by first going through an experiment to say, I'm trying to vlog. Would you like to come along as an audience?
Yes.
And they did. It was lovely. It was growing from 30 people to 50 people to 100 people, and so it was going.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I started going, so this is what I've learned, but now I know I have to have themes. So I started making themes, and on a Monday and on a Wednesday I had something, and on Tuesday or Thursday I had something different. And on a Friday I ran my show that was a Netflix review show.
Okay.
And so I was just having fun on a Friday with my show called Binge. And suddenly it was amazing to see where the numbers were going and when it was moving well.
Okay, but now let's talk about you segmenting your content on your YouTube channel. There's a thing called playlists. So you don't just bung everything onto your YouTube channel and hope people are going to look for it, because you're going to get certain people that are coming for certain things. So tell us about playlists and how they work.
Okay, so you start by using tags. Obviously, you've got to do all of those kind of things, and your blurbs and your titles are very, very important because they get picked up by Google. That's how you initially get your new audience coming in.
Yes.
And then, of course, you want to create playlists. And I suppose playlists you want to do, according to topic. And again, it's important for the audience to see stuff move all the time.
Yeah.
Like if you stop doing it for a week or two because you're busy and you're working on a new seminar or a webinar or something, your numbers just plummet. And then it's almost like starting from scratch.
Wow. So you've really got to, the pressure's on. You can't go on holiday, you've got to do it.
Well, yeah. And I think what most of those vloggers do is they make the holiday and the lifestyle, a lot of people make the lifestyle what it is that they vlog about, because that way it's so included in your routine that it becomes so much a part of you that it is you.
Yeah. So we're talking here about actually recording your own video and then posting that onto YouTube, but you first got to make the video.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, what are the most important components of putting together a video that is compelling? In other words, things like the length of it, how you set yourself up, your lighting, all those sort of things. Talk us through that.
I think that I've seen it in the beginning of lockdown when everybody rushed out and bought cameras and they bought lights and they bought good microphones and stuff. Obviously, I think it's good to have all of that. But at the heart of it, you have to have it. It's got to be interesting, and it's got to be compelling and come across professionally or likable. And so I found in this time, probably one of the most important things I think is just to be authentic.
Yes.
Be real, be yourself, and come across with heart. And I think that's how you build. People know when there's pretense going on in a funny kind of way. And so I think probably authenticity is the most important one. And then your story and how you connect with people with your content.
And then you would obviously need to prep a little bit to have some kind of structure to what you're going to be saying, some kind of intention of how long it's going to be, and also just think about your intent. What are you actually trying to achieve by putting across this message? I mean, is it to sensationalize something? Is it to train people? Is it to give them tips? Is it part of a collection of tips? What is it?
I wonder if I don't know that you can be that rigid about it to go, here's my plan for the next 6 months. But I do think that if you have a kind of a framework that you hang it on, that's good. Yeah. Probably in order to be topical, I think that you should be open to figure out things that do have a moment of sensationalism or something that's topically that gets people talking. For example, again, I'm going to cite some of Mark's stuff that he does just because I was so impressed with how it moves. When everybody was really getting tired of this lockdown situation, it was unfair. We weren't feeling good about ourselves. We weren't feeling, and I think the one day he had a rant, just a good 20 minutes of being really upset on Facebook, and after that posted, it was live actually, and it flew off the wall. 800,000, 1 million people watched
because it tugged at a string.
Exactly,
at a heartstring.
and it was so brutally real. It was so, in that moment, he was there and he said, this is how I'm feeling, and it's not that but I think we're in an abusive relationship with the government, and this is what's wrong with it. And I think it was so heartfelt that it struck a chord with people. And I suppose that's the kind of stuff that's opened up his vlog to be able to speak to people like Herman Mashaba and Anne, you know. And so it's something that has become a bit of a trend.
Yeah.
But obviously now, you know, he's doing something else back to his normal, you know, in business, back to how small businesses are suffering and what we're doing and how we can get through this.
Yeah.
So I think if you inspire people, if you connect with people, that would be what is at the heart of whatever topic it is that you have.
Okay, but in a sense, what we're talking about here, we're into content at the moment, and generally we get known for being the guy that does this or the guy that does that. So you're known as a filmmaker, as a producer. I'm known as a presentation skills specialist. I'm also a customer experience specialist, and I do the odd talk every now and then. So we get known according to our brand. So to what extent do we need to, and I'm really looking for a percentage here, how much of our stuff needs to be within our brand, and how much of our stuff can actually be delivered outside of our brand?
Well, as you well know, you took to the guitar and started singing.
Yeah.
And how amazing was that? Because
Nico, I don't understand it, because you know, I'm struggling to get 100 views on a video that I post, and then I write a song the one night. It was the middle of June. I put up a dare on Facebook. About half a dozen people come back. I dare you, I double dare you. So I thought, what the heck? And the next morning I literally woke up, put the microphone on, did one take, recorded the thing, put it up, bang, 2,000 views. So how does that work?
It's amazing. Was it heartfelt?
It was just, there were a few mistakes in there.
But it was authentic, it's you.
Well,
and I think what it does is it shows the other side of Paul, which is what's so magnificent about it, because he's real, and he's a real person, and this is his passion. This is something else we didn't know about him, and that's intriguing. I think that's what audiences love. It's real.
Yeah, sure. I get that.
Yeah. And so I don't think you can plan it always, and I think you can start to sense when people are trying to do things that are sensationalism, or that it's not really heartfelt. And I think when there's something that says, I'm opening up my world a bit, and I'm bringing a little bit more of me to you, I think people appreciate that.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I want to just scoot back into technical. Say you're at home and you're recording your own videos, and you've maybe got your webcam or your computer little webcam, and you might or might not have an external microphone. So you're working with what you've got. What are the things that you really need to do? In other words, you might be doing that. You might alternatively also have your own camcorder, whatever it is. But what are the main things you want? What is most important and what's least important in terms of tech?
I don't think that tech gets in the way as much. You want to be sure that your sound is good. And then after that, you want to be sure that you are lit to a degree that, you know, right now we're sitting here and there's quite a strong backlight. It feels good. There's a key light. There's a main light coming from somewhere. And I think you want people to see the sparkle in your eye. That's important. They want to see your eyes. But I think after that, for me, it really is much more about the content. You can see somebody whose content is off the wall fresh. And it could be shot handheld with a phone, and it'll be fine. We'll be forgiving, you know. So I think the content does run, but technically, I would say yes. If you have make sure that the angles are good. It's the general stuff that you can see quickly on checklists.
I would still say though that you want to try and establish a certain level of consistent quality. You know, when you've got a handheld phone and the thing's going like this all the time, and the face is dark and there's a light shining in the back, it just doesn't seem to work.
It could get in the way. So absolutely, yes. Camera at eye level, you want to have the sparkle in the eye, you want to see the eyes, and you want to make sure that there's a nice backlight or some kind of molding that helps to, you know, shape the face a little bit. Those are the basics, I would say.
Okay, so we've talked about authenticity, but what would be your main steps to to being authentic?
I think that if you can tell people, I always say to people, if you look at the first 3 or 4 seconds that somebody watches something, probably their finger's still on the button and they're going to go. And so if you can figure out some way of making a connection with them early on and go, here's why I'm doing this, or if you stay with me for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to be able to tell you how to do this, or you're going to learn this from it. I think if you engage as quickly as possible, and if you have a hook as quickly as possible, there's a good shot that you're going to make a connection. And that's the connection. It doesn't always have to be a soppy story or a sad story or something, sensationalist. It can just be something that says, this is a real person. I want to wait a little bit more to hear what he or she is saying. And then I think they're going to buy in.
You mentioned an interesting word there. You said the word story.
Storytelling, yes, of course. I'm a big fan.
So tell us, from your point of view, what are the components of storytelling that really work if you're putting content out there? And I'd like you to also explain to us how long or how short should your videos be?
Okay. I'd say, for starters, as long as it needs to be. On the different platforms, I think some people get the point across and then they almost repeat themselves because they feel that they need to talk for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 90 minutes. If you have a really compelling piece and it's only 5 minutes, even 3 minutes, then you landed the point, and I think you should go with that. And so I think that's important. And then I think the other thing about putting your structure together of a story is to kind of involve people somehow with it, have a hero in it, have a character in it, and it shouldn't always just be the speaker. I don't think it's about yourself. It's about something I saw this morning coming in, and there was somebody by the side of the road, or I saw somebody drive, or the moment that you do something that people can connect with, that's done that first connection that we want. And I think one should get that in as soon as possible. And from there, you can go to your next point, which is a kind of a hook of some kind. Some kind of promise. If you stay with me for the next 2 minutes, I'm going to teach you how to do your finance, or I'm going to show you how to. There's benefits. My why, but also the benefits that you as a viewer will get from it.
Sure. Okay. So. We've spoken mainly about YouTube, but obviously there are other platforms available. Do you just put it on YouTube, or do you put your things on Facebook and Vimeo and what have you? And the reason I'm asking is that guitar piece in particular, when I stuck it on Facebook, I got hundreds of views, and I've put it on YouTube and I've got about 12 views. Now, talk us through that.
I think the first thing that you have to do is if you're going to be on YouTube, obviously I think you have to get your subscribers there, and it starts to move. There are ways of getting a good thumbnail, an image, something on the image that describes what it is, and then it goes into Google, and because of your tags and so on, it's going to move. So YouTube, you've got wax to know why it's going to move or how it's going to move. Once you start doing those things, that's just search engine optimization.
So you're saying to me really that the tags you keep mentioning the tags all the time, so those tags are really important.
And your title, you know what's amazing about the title? If you put in your title some form of parenthesis, or in brackets just a year, 2020, or something that's hyphenated with a note or some kind. Those get picked up as adjustments on the title by Google, and those just fly off the wall more so. Just a simple tip. And your title, you want to have a title that grabs attention. Short, punchy, 3 or 4 words, 5 words at most, colon into some form of parenthesis, and then your tags, which you figure out the categories that you work in, or the space specifically where this piece may sit for an audience.
Okay.
But if we move to Facebook and so on, it's a little bit different, because in Facebook we found now that the algorithms prefer that you post the clip on Facebook itself. So don't have a clip that sits on YouTube and then put it into.
Correct.
They don't like that so much. They want you to archive it onto Facebook. So that's the first big thing.
So you want to save it as a Facebook friendly file that you can then upload easily to Facebook.
Exactly. You want to upload your video to Facebook itself.
And what I've generally found is that if I'm able to upload it to Facebook, that same file is very easy to upload to YouTube as well.
Absolutely.
You don't then have to redo it or anything.
Absolutely. And also to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is just marvelous with moving stuff because people really want to see short bursts of interesting information, business sense that flies, and it just is beautiful.
Yes.
And if I can give you a tip for LinkedIn, I found that the entrepreneurial market, the business market, is really buzzing on a Friday night at 10 o'clock.
A Friday night at 10 o'clock.
It's crazy, yeah, definitely.
Insane.
I couldn't believe it, but you can probably get double to 3 times the amount of views with something in that space, that time of night, than you do on a Monday morning, for example.
So folks, rather jawl on a Saturday night, Friday night, you need to be working.
That's it. Yeah.
So there's something that I want to ask you about Vimeo, because I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
What about Vimeo?
Vimeo, of course, I love. Our website, Tycoon Tribe, is everything that's on there is hosted in Vimeo. And it's because Vimeo offers you a very, very good compression, and it immediately links to wherever you embed it. So the embed code is very clean. You can also forbid people to download, or you can block other sites from embedding, or open if you want. And so I enjoy using Vimeo that way, and it works really well for our website.
Okay, so here's the interesting thing. Vimeo almost forces you to take a subscription because there's a limited amount of space that you can take up in a week or whatever, whereas YouTube seems to be more open. So my question really to you is, and I'm going to ask you about both channels, is why should you have a paid account on YouTube and why should you have a paid account on Vimeo, or shouldn't you?
Okay, so I suppose, it's a huge conversation, I guess. Vimeo is expensive, so you pay for that compression, you pay for the quality of it. The beautiful thing for me with Vimeo is that even if you do choose to monetize your content on Vimeo, they won't cannibalize your viewers by taking them elsewhere, where particularly YouTube does that. YouTube doesn't care if you have something that is in an innovation space, for example, YouTube are just going to push other innovation stuff to the same viewers that you have and steal them. So in having it on your own website or having it on Vimeo means that you retain your own viewers and you can offer more of what you offer to them, where YouTube is going to look for a better opportunity with more views and more likes because they're interested in making the experience for their viewers better. So you'll always be sort of a visitor on YouTube. I think it's very expensive to start running your own site on YouTube as well. Whereas if you have it on Vimeo, you have the choice to monetize it, but obviously you would rather use Vimeo because you can then successfully embed without, again, ads or anything like that, and staying on your own site.
And for those that don't understand what embedding means, do you want to just...
Embedding is just taking the code of the URL where the clip is uploaded and placing that on your own, whether it would be a WordPress site or whatever website you have, and that code you would punch in on your page or on the post, and then when people see it when it's published, the actual video would sit there and they can click on it and watch it.
Okay, so let's say you can't buy studio time, you're obliged to do it, and let's say you've got a fairly small residence. There's a little bit of noise around and what have you. What are the vital bits of equipment that you want in order to be able to make videos that people will notice?
Do you know that your iPhone has an HD camera? The newest phones have a beautiful 4K image. I had a friend of mine did a performance piece on an iPhone that he's holding, walking through a derelict building and performing as a character that's deranged, coming back in the future, 30 years in the future, and it is this magnificent performance, and the camera is crisp and clean on every single shot, beautiful natural lighting, and he's seriously thinking about making a film with it.
Just with his iPhone?
Just with his iPhone, because it is a 4K, his new phone has a 4K camera in it.
So here's an interesting thing. When all the online conferences, the video conferences and the webinars and that started, we've found from the research and the poll that I did recently that about 20% of your speakers went out there and went full on for the studio thing, lights, different cameras, this, that, and the next thing. You're really saying that content is probably 7 to 10 times more important than even starting to think of getting high-end pieces of equipment.
I think the temptation is high to have all of what we have here, but I also think that there's a way that you have to use it. You know, if we're going to do a talk show like this, even just the convention that I'm using at the moment, or by understanding the convention of a two-shot, a close-up, is really important. So even if you had 3 cameras, but you weren't using them well, you'll probably do a little bit of damage first before you actually have impact with it.
Yeah, well, what I've found in my setup is relatively minimalistic. I've got a really good camera, a really good microphone, but I had my roadie already because of my presentation skills training.
Yes.
But I managed to, I struggled a bit to get it connected up so there wasn't a buzz and what have you, but eventually when I got it right, I just found that one piece of equipment
huge improvement.
Made a huge amount of difference. And the only thing that I've really bought has been a webcam, and when I bought one, I bought a good one. I bought a Logitech 922, and a good friend of mine, whom I interviewed a few weeks ago, Mariana Pascal, she said to me, why don't you download webcam settings, which I did. And again, because of the lighting behind me, I've simply got 3 profiles, and I make sure that I either do the afternoon profile or the evening profile or the morning profile, and everyone says, well, your picture's much better now and it's clearer now and what have you. So what I'm really getting to here, Nico, is that the tech itself puts the speaker under quite a lot of pressure.
Hugely so. I mean, you know, even just coming into the studio and plugging into a new system, there's a certain amount of pressure because you have a clock and it's ticking, and you know. So I would say it's probably a good idea to start playing with what it is that you can download for free. There are, for example, on top of the system that you have right now, there's something like OBS, which is you can download, and it runs probably on a second computer. So I'd say probably the thing that you want to invest in next is a second computer, because a second computer would enable you to have a background, you know, a slide, run a slide autonomously, and then use something like OBS in order to intercut, play other videos seamlessly. Because I think the next thing to do, once you've got your Zoom waxed and you have your how to do a transition and show a PowerPoint and that kind of stuff as seamless as you can, the next thing is to start thinking about how to make that experience more showy, or more, give it more production value in video playback, animations, and then slides and stuff that you intercut with.
Sure, and then quite a lot of speakers are getting hold of these ATEM minis if you can get them.
Beautiful, yeah.
Which helps you to switch between cameras. But then again, I just feel that unless you're technically orientated, it does take time to get used to the tech.
Craft.
And it does for a period of time. And there are a number of speakers that I know that have gone into the tech big time, and they've got a studio, and they really are producing wonderful stuff from a technical point of view, but they'll all tell you that it's been a steep learning curve. It's been hard, and they've had to graft and experiment and what have you, but eventually when you get there, it's probably worth it. And
very rewarding.
And then those guys are ahead from a technical point of view, and they do just look more professional. But you don't have to.
I don't think you have to. I think the one thing that I am fascinated about, because as the rules are opening up, and we're going to be able to, hopefully within the next 2 or 3 months, start having audiences again. I think that the people who have invested in not necessarily the equipment, but the skills to understand how you broadcast and how broadcast or narrowcast works, and how you can get a slicker production, those people are probably going to be able to get back into the real world and be in front of audiences and suddenly have video clips in their presentations, and they're going to have animations, and they're going to bring some of that skill into a kind of a new version of what happens in a room.
Just to give us a summary of some of the most important points that he thinks that one needs to bear in mind when making your own videos for YouTube or Vimeo or even Facebook.
Okay. I'm a total stickler for structure. And I think that when I work with writers, and when we work particularly in video, with writing, structure is absolutely key. And even if you just want to remember the basic one of beginning, middle, and end, and try and think that even if you have a beginning and a middle and an end, and your beginning scene sets, then even the beginning, which is the scene set act, has a beginning and a middle and an end.
Yes.
And even the beginning of the beginning has a beginning and an end, and the beginning of the beginning of the beginning has a... And so the moment that you can think about how you're threading the storyline through so that you keep an audience in,
Yes.
you will be able to have better impact with your structure, and your stories will flow better. And better flow would mean people stay engaged.
Yeah, so in a sense, firstly, you want to, at the beginning, use your time wisely in terms of setting up what you're going to be talking about, which is really what an intro is all about, and making sure that you top and tail it to the point of view that if your message is not totally clear, you maybe just hit that point again towards the end so that people get the message, because that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to put some kind of message across.
And I'm absolutely. And I think that the reason that you have to land each idea is if you're busy telling somebody something and you go, I want to tell you 3 points, and you tell them point number 1 and 2, and you fall over yourself and you forget about point 3 for another beat or 2, you'll always have 3 or 4 members in the audience sitting there going, when is he going to talk about part 3? And so it's blocking their mind from getting to the next piece of communication just purely because you've skipped over something that's bothering them, and until you undo that, they can't go on the rest of the journey. It's an interesting thing, I think. Psychologically,
Absolutely.
I think psychologically people want to see things nicely tied down and in a little bow presented, and then you can move to the next piece. Whereas if you're asking them just in their mind to follow a concept or a model that you may have in your mind very clearly, you may be seemingly erratic to them, and that confuses them, and so they'll tune out.
And I think maybe just the last thing, that we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously when we're on video, because if we do, then it'll come through and it'll look less authentic and less compelling. Is just to relax, be yourself, and that word that you used so effectively, authenticity.